Welcome back to the Mushing Alaska podcast. Gosh, that feels good to say. Dude, Sean, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Moved up to Denali and it's snowing on yesterday, October 9th. And, that's always exciting. It's always exciting getting the first snow of the season. And, yeah, I'm excited to be pressing the record button with you for the first time in quite a few months. It's been a fun summer, one of my favorite summers ever. And just got done visiting you and the fam, and just life is good.
That's right. Life is good. And it does feel good to press record. And it was good to also get some messages from listeners asking, hey, are you guys coming back? What's going on? So we got those messages, and yes, we're coming back. I think for us, Sean and I talked about it, and I think the desire to do a year-round podcast is there, but with how the season works of mushing in Alaska, there is a an off season, if you will, and then the logistics of pulling it off with me still based in Atlanta, Georgia. Sean's, he was in Anchorage. Now he's in Denali, but during the summer, he's usually out doing some fishing. So I think for us, it's easier to pull off when we just kind of follow the season, the mushing season in Alaska. And obviously there's not too many races coming up yet, but there's no better time now to start talking about it. And we're excited to break down this upcoming season.
Yeah, I even saw there was actually some races happening right now. There was in Chugiak, which is they've got a little mushing association over there. Well, it's not so little, really. They've got a bunch of trails that are both summer and winter maintained out there, and they had some events, including but not limited to canocross and bike drawing, and I guess six dog rigs. And I'm not super familiar with that scene. I think it's awesome that they've got their own program going on in Chugiak. I saw Remy Costa, who was in the Ferrandi, and a few other Ferrandi mushers doing it. And it's a great, for people in the sprint dog scene, it's great for people that are just getting into mushing and want to dip their toes in the water. It's good for people that aren't getting into mushing and have a dog that needs to run, and they want to go for a run too. Let's run a 5K together. Saw some really cool content from Mushing Magazine and a few other mushing connections. And so, yeah, it feels like the off season came and went, and then now we're really the preseasons came and went, and now we're already in it. Kind of, it's snowing up here. People are in the throes of fall training. You see some awesome truck training videos with Connor McMahon and Nick Petit, Jesse Terry, all these guys.
That video,
really cool stuff.
That video you put up of Nick Petit with, was it 4 lines running?
No, it was 2. I think it was 2. I'm pretty sure.
It's 2, but it's
7
literally
wide,
Yeah, it looked 4 wide, but it's 2. That was just, I was super impressed to see that.
Yeah, yeah.
So let me ask you this. So I went over to the Chugiak Dog Mushers website, and I think I know the difference, but I'm going to ask it because there's probably some sort of learning involved for me. So the dry land season is what the first thing I see on their website, and it talks about bike jaw, scooter, cart, and canocross. So if I have that right, bike jaw, dog set up to the bike, and you're biking, and the bike is
Yes.
kind of like the sled, right? Okay.
Yep.
Scooter is what it sounds like.
Exactly.
Is it like, is it a scooter? Is it a 2-wheel scooter? Is it a 4-wheel scooter?
It's a my understanding is and from the videos I've seen and the scooters I've seen, there's probably some 4-wheel scooters, but it's just like, some beefy like off-road tires, two tires, and you got a big platform to stand on. And yeah, so there was a video of it up on I think Mushing Mag's just been but ripping out a bunch of videos on Instagram and Facebook. So you can, I encourage anyone to go and scroll through that and see. Yeah, it was a special weekend over there in Chugiak, it seems. And yeah, they have scooter. I think that there's probably like some wiggle room. Like the scooter doesn't have to be a certain, like with a sled and long distance mushing, it just has to be able to carry a dog, and not be self-propelled, so like there's probably not like a bunch of specific things, but I may be also talking out of my butt. Maybe they have a standardized scooter, but I would think it'd be a little more inclusive than if you can bring your Razor scooter out. And then from 2002, you're probably welcome to use that too.
I was thinking about that. And then so cart, like is that where you have a wheel that you're like sitting down and you have like a wheel that you're steering or something?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we could bring in someone that was there, because I don't really know for sure. But to me, I think of a cart, as at least 3 wheels, if maybe 4, and they're just, yeah, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit heavier, maybe more dogs pulling you around. Sure. Yeah, like I said, there's some cool videos on Mushing Magazine, and look, I'm not going to pretend to know that scene super well and intimately. I've spent a lot of time in the mid-distance, long-distance mushing scene, and I do feel confident about my knowledge about that. But this is, a little bit of a different,
uncharted territories.
Yeah, little uncharted territory. So, but yeah, they got carts and scooters and bikes and running, and yeah.
Dude, the Canicross sounds super interesting to me. Like, I probably would never feel as fast as I felt in my life if you're like, all right, Brendan, let's go run a mile and throw a couple dogs on there too. I might be concerned that I might like die because they would just like pull me over kind of.
Yeah, I mean, you get a lot of them. I don't even know. I would assume most of people do that with 1 dog or 2 chill dogs, and it does help, but you're not sitting there, you want to keep it, reasonable, I think. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I saw some really cool photos of that event this weekend. So people are going really fast, depending on their level of experience and their setup and their dogs. But I mean, I'm sure Remy Costa is not in taking his time out there.
Nice.
Him and his dogs have been here since the Ferrandi. They've been mostly in Chugiak, just training every single day, like all summer long. So, you can, his dogs. I mean, his dogs are ready, and I got to spend time with his wife and this summer, working us on a sled dog tour, and so I got to learn a thing or two about how they do things and about their winter and summer, and so I'm excited to see them up here in Alaska for this winter.
Yeah, I was going to ask, are they only focused on the sprint racing, or do you think that there is any desire to kind of test out some new waters?
Sprint racing.
Gotcha. Okay. So obviously, we haven't put out an episode in 4 or 5 months. And so there's been a lot of different things that have been going on in the mushing world. But before we get into that, Sean and I were just talking about a website that the last time we did an episode, website was just kind of getting off the ground. It's called sleddogtalk.com. And just wanted to kind of just briefly talk about them for a second.
Yeah, Iditarod Musher Sean Williams made the website. It's all things sled dogs, mushing. Great just for community, that this global community. I'm sure there's some talk about this weekend's event in Chugiak, but there's also, from all corners of the world, you can learn about the trails, the local events. Where is there to go to run your dogs when you show up in Minnesota or you show up in France? You can find that information there. Or if you don't have that information, you can ask, and you'll probably have someone answer it. So, if you're looking, and even if you don't have sled dogs, it's like a pretty cool place to go check out and see what's going on in the world and get a better, more well-rounded view of sled dogs and their people, and seeing these smaller events and these summer events and the winter events, and there's so much to mushing that Brendan and I haven't really uncovered, and you can go and uncover it yourself on that website. The more people that visit it, the better it's going to be, more information. So we encourage you to go check it out.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a for the people by the people website. So you can go in and you can put certain things, events, if you're looking for something, if you have a question, that sort of thing. I was joking around with Sean. I was like, oh, I wonder what kind of events are coming up. I know there's probably not much. And then bam, this weekend in Colorado, Granby, Colorado, there's the Snow Mountain Ranch Tri-Land Classic. And so, yeah, it's just like, it's one site where it puts kind of everything together, which is kind of nice. And so we are friends with Sean. And so we just want to do our best to promote the website.
Yeah, it gets confusing, I think, with these races and communities that have Instagrams and Facebooks, and you don't know, they also have their own websites. And so to have just one place where you can hopefully just find everything. And if you can't find everything right now, you can put it on there. And pretty cool concept. So sleddogtalk.com.
Amen to that. Shout out to Sean. And so, yeah, moving into some of the news and notes before we get into our interview with Severin Cathry. Sean and I kind of wrote down a list of a couple of different things. Sean, what do you want to kind of start with?
Well, we've had like a lot of signups for a lot of events. Before we go to the signups that have already opened up, there's also the Sioux Dog 300 that signups are coming up here in a few days, and it's a new race, and it'll be in the Willow area. And my friend Letty is putting it on. I think Lev is on there on the board with Karin Hendrickson and a few other familiar names that you're going to see around that event. And it's supposed to be kind of more of a recreational mid-distance race where they don't have prize money. They probably do have some prizes, but it's more just like, all right, if you want to get into your first 300-mile event, do you really want to go dive headfirst into the Copper Basin? Maybe not. Maybe, so having this race is can be for include everybody. If you want to if you're an expert 20-year-long musher, it's still great 300-mile training run. It's not like it's easy, but if you're just getting started, it's gonna be kind of that event to, hey, I haven't done a 300-mile race. Why don't I try this one out? It's a little bit, less competitive is what environment is my understanding. And we're going to probably have someone from that event, maybe speak to it a little bit more accurately.
Yeah. So I wanted to nicely summarize what Sean is trying to say, in addition to information that we were given from Letty. So the focus of the race is to provide a mentoring, learning opportunities for mushers, training runs for dog teams, and an event for non-mushers to get involved with and celebrate the sport. The race is designed with an emphasis on quality dog care, integrity, and fun. The starting and closing ceremonies of the race are open to the public, and all are welcome to participate, either as mushers racing or non-mushers volunteering. The goal is to create a community event for everyone to experience and enjoy the sport. So as I was reading that as you were saying it, I'm like, well, let me butt in real
it sounds
quick.
a little bit more concise there.
Yeah, exactly.
I was fumbling my way through a similar kind of vibe, but that's a little bit more accurate. So yeah, it's a cool event. I'm excited to see Letty, who I've known for a couple years, and she's my age, helping put on an event. Seems like she has a pretty big role in it, and Lev, of course, we've had some good times with Lev on this show, and
sweet,
and me with him on the trail, and so it's cool. It sounds like a really cool event, and like I said, there's not a ton of like 300-mile events here. It's kind of like you've got Copper Basin, Cusco, Kobuck, and those are all like pretty insane, like really challenging events. They're difficult to get to Bethel, get to Kotzebue. The Copper Basins, got like an insanely difficult trail, and so this is like seems like it's filling a much needed niche in mid distance mushing, and I'm excited to see how the winter goes for this event. And so yeah, Sioux Dog 300.
Right on. And like Sean said, obviously we're going to talk about the upcoming race season, and the social media has been kind of dropping from the Cusco and the Copper Basin, various mushers that have entered. So we'll break those down in time. We're not going to necessarily spend a lot of time on those today in today's episode. The other thing I wanted to bring up was, sadly, there's been some deaths in the mushing community. And again, from my perspective, it's hard to talk about something that I don't know a lot about. So I'll kind of turn the reins to Sean. But I know we had Stu Nelson pass away, and he was a big name within the Iditarod community specifically. But Sean, what do you have to say? Did you ever? You had some interactions with Stu during your 20 and 21 Iditarod runs?
Oh yeah, everybody did. Anyone who's ever been in the Iditarod over the course of the last, I want to say like 20 years. Maybe he, I don't know how long he's been the head vet, but he's certainly been the head veterinarian for at least, several years. And been involved with the race for most of his like adult life. And so, yeah, in 2020, you go and do your mandatory veterinary checks. I did that, and he was there. He's given, tens of thousands of dogs, ECGs.
38 years, by the way, Sean.
38 years.
Yep.
That's a long time. And in 2021, with Dallas, I was running a team out from his kennel. We had one dog that had like irregular heart readings, and he called me, was super concerned for this dog. I was not planning on taking the dog, so I was like, I'm just gonna leave him home anyways, and this is gonna make me double down on that decision. And he's like, yeah, but we've never seen anything like this really ever, and we would love to just do another ECG with him and see if it was just kind of like a misreading, or if there's like something, concerning. And if we want to know about this dog's well-being, even if he isn't running the Iditarod and isn't part of our event, if he's going to continue to run as a sled dog, we want you to be having, all the information that you can have about his potential condition. And so we went and brought him back, and he did some more testing, and tests came all back normally. And so, that's just a testament to he went above and beyond. He could have just been like, hey, you shouldn't have this dog in the race. Click. He's like, no, we want to like make sure this dog is, fit to be a sled dog. Even if it is not a dog that'll be in our event. When I was on the trail this year as part of the media in 2024, we had 3 dog deaths in the Iditarod this year. It was a pretty fucked up couple of days. We didn't really know, why. But he, of course I saw him, I've seen him at the start line of every race in the last 6 years. Every time hey, Stu, how's it going? He's like, Sean, good to see you. Even though I never talked to him, in between Iditarod starts necessarily. But I saw him in Nome and was like, dude, like, yeah, like, I wonder what it could have been, like what the cause was. He's like, dude, we're gonna do our best to get to the bottom. He was fired up. I mean, he was like, you could see that was kind of look in his eye, like we got to do everything and we can to try to solve this mystery. And he did spend a lot of this summer doing those tests on those dogs. They did an initial necropsy on them, and when nothing was conclusive, and they, did a more involved, rigorous testing of those dogs, and weren't able to find like any conclusive reason. The best theory is a random sudden death event. I've seen over the last year multiple human marathon runners that have passed away in their event. Triathlon runners, it happens. Statistically, it's improbable, but it also will happen with athletes. That's just it's, and there's nothing that the mushers could have really done to prevent it. They were all very well-trained teams, and really well-trained dogs. And he put a lot of his energy, resources, and time into trying to figure out what it was. And I'm sure he wasn't, would have liked to have a more concrete reason. Oh, this is what happened. This is why it happened. And this is how we're going to prevent it to happen again. And, but he's just super passionate about the dogs and keeping them happy, or keeping them safe and cared for on the trail, and has been a pioneer for that in the event for 38 years. And I've always enjoyed. I spent an hour talking with him in Nome about this year's race, and when I was going, I think I left my phone in White Mountain, and I went to go to like the comms area, and it's like 2 p.m. and Stu's taking a nap like on a cot, because he's been just crazy sleep deprived for 3 weeks probably straight, and it's 2 p.m. the race is finally over, and he's taking a little nap. He doesn't have to do this, as he's like, and it's not like an easy job. It's super stressful and a lot of responsibility, but he did, and he kept doing it for a long time, and we're thankful for him with this race, and also he just was a cool dude. And I when I was put into the 2020 race, 4 days left, he gave me like a personal like rookie meeting where he took out the most, something that every rookie has to go through in December. Well, I had 5 days to prepare, and he printed out a packet. He highlighted like, these are the things you really, really need to be careful about when you're out there. And he was like, call me like anytime in these days, and I will answer any question. Like, just give me a call. So I'm one of thousands of stories like this. From me and I'm like just this random musher that showed up and ran a couple Iditarods, and how many of me, that version, exist over the last 38 years, I can only imagine. So I'm sure there's going to be lots of good stories about Stu in the days and years to come. And condolences to his family, and Yeah, that's all I got to say, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think you said it. I think you said a lot there, and I appreciate your story that you're sharing there. And for me, the one thing that kind of stands out about what you're saying is, his passion. And like, I know you were super nervous before, you got thrown out there. So I'm sure it was nice to have like someone who's like taking you kind of under their wing and doing that. But it just we had to mention that. One thing that we'll kind of try to do moving forward with, especially some of the mushers that have been in that Iditarod multiple times, is ask them if they have any good Stu Nelson stories. I'm sure there are some out there, and that can be a way that we, as a podcast, that we kind of remember Stu and what he's done for the mushing scene and the Iditarod and such. So.
Yeah, we will. This will not be the last time we talk about Dr. Stu.
So, obviously kind of hard to transition from something like that, but obviously we've talked about some of the races and signups. The other thing that Sean was kind of pointing out to me, and I have questions about this, is that the Yukon Quest has updated the trail, and we didn't really talk about it much. But my first question was: is this the Canada side of the Yukon Trail? Is this the Alaska version of the race? Do you know? Any thoughts?
Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it is the Canadian side, and I've never ran on the trail on that side. But I've driven alongside the trail. People are real stoked about the trail changes, and I think when you have mushers that have been mushing in these events for years and years, they get real fired up and excited about getting to see a new trail in similar country. So we're gonna break down the new trail and the map. Hopefully we'll get someone on that is a little bit more familiar with that area than me. Like I said, I've only been in the Yukon for about a week. So, but you can see the excitement. It was when they broke news about that, there was just a lot of buzz. And I think it's important to remember that when you talk about a new trail, it's or an old trail, they're all subject to change based on winter conditions. How did the river freeze up? How did the snow? Was there an ample amount of snow? What's the temperature like leading into the race, and while they're breaking trail? So I think as excited as we are about the trail, there's also like other, there's Mother Nature, and as we've seen with these hurricanes in your neck of the woods, we can have all these plans, but ultimately we're still at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Right. Yep. Okay. Well, I think that it kind of covers the news and notes, that we kind of wanted to discuss before we bring up our first. It's our first episode of season 3, if you will, right? But we recorded this episode at the end of season 2, and we had some technical difficulties with it. And I'm going to be honest, I'll throw myself under the bus. I was not looking forward to the amount of editing to kind of piece this together. So, we kind of took our break, and then Sean was here a couple weeks ago, and I was like, all right, let's sit down and listen. And so I ran it through. I have 2 programs that I can kind of run it through to kind of try to enhance the audio, and that worked. But what happens is for this episode, Sean's in Alaska, I'm in Atlanta, Sevi is in Switzerland. And so it's a logistical nightmare for us. And when he spoke specifically, it recorded everything, but sometimes there'd be like 2-second gaps, half a second gap, 3/4 of a second gap. So we went back, we listened to it, and I did a really good job. I'm proud of myself of editing out some of those spaces.
I completely and totally crushed it.
I mean, Sean, did you edit any of this?
I was there to support you, dude. I was
Dude,
there.
that's
in
all
the
I needed.
flesh.
That's all I needed. Is
You
you
just needed
being
me.
there.
And I was like, "Hey, you're doing great." And you were like, "Yeah, I am doing great." Yeah.
So anyways, I'm excited that we were able to save this interview and that we're able to put it out. And I would like to think that it's very tolerable for you all as listeners to listen to. I think it kind of got a little rough towards the end, but that was a part that I kind of really tried to tighten up and hone in on. So hopefully it sounds good for you all. I think you'll be happy with it. And any notes? I know it was like 4 or 5 months ago, but we did
Well,
listen back to it. So
yeah, we listened to the whole thing in the same room in Atlanta together, and I just want to emphasize that Severin did a great job on this interview. You know, English is his second language. I think he was like, "Oh, I don't know, do you really want me on the podcast?" Like, hell yeah, we wanted you on the podcast, dude, and you were super fun to talk to. Listening, I always dread listening to myself talk. I think not the only one that just I don't know what it is about listening to yourself. And I listened to this episode. I was like, wow, dude, Sevi was actually, I was like really fun to listen to his perspective and his stories. And he's just been in the mushing scene since for like 15 years. He showed up here in 2010. And then, it's real complicated to get meaningful reps in mushing. If you're a Swiss citizen, you can't come out and just spend 10 years down here. Although I believe Boozer pulled it off somehow, but that was a different time, dude. That was a long time ago. So, Sevi, we're stoked that you got to get to your Iditarod finish line after literally over a decade of working towards it. And it was cool seeing you up here this winter. And man, great job on the interview. We made do with the crappy connection. The connection was actually pretty good for the first like 45 minutes. And then maybe Sevi just like ran out of data on his plan or something. I don't know. But then it started kind of getting a little sketchy. But as Brendan said, he's got a superior editing skills. Superior.
yeah, that's why I get paid to edit. Yeah. Yep. But no, shout out to Sevi. He was one of 10 rookie finishers in last year's Iditarod. And you'll hear the stories. He kind of talks a little bit about the end, and the end was hard. As it proves to be for a lot of first timers, and we had a good time with him though, and I'm super happy. Sean, have you been in touch with Sevi since we've
No, dude,
done
I
this?
purposefully didn't, dude. I was like,
Yes,
I've been meaning to reach out to him all summer. Like, hey, man, like it's not you. It's just the connection was crappy and we dreading editing it. And then I went fishing and then it's season's over. We're like, maybe it won't come out. Maybe it will. And I was like, oh, I should text him and just be like, hey, because he's probably wondering like, hey, dude, we did this interview like 4 months ago. I haven't seen it come out. I mean, should we text him now or should we just put it out? I don't know, but I kind of like the surprise maybe.
Yeah, I kind of like the element of surprise. I have a feeling I don't know Sevi very well, but the vibe he gave me is like he's probably not like oh, screw those guys. Like, why did I waste my time? But I do think he's gonna be like, oh, there it is. So I'm kind of excited. I don't think that you should say anything. I think we should surprise him. We don't normally operate like this. This is kind of a one-off, but I think that it'll be kind of fun. And it'll be fun in the process, it'll be fun to reconnect with him and see what he's up to these days. So yeah, any other notes? Anything to conclude with before we transition over to the interview?
No.
I think we nailed it. We're a little rusty for our first one, but we'll take it. And we hope you guys enjoy this next episode or this next interview with Severin Cathry. And we will be putting these out every 2 weeks. So be on the lookout, and we hope you enjoy. Alrighty. So next up, our next guest is Severin Cathry, coming to us all the way from Switzerland. We are there's 3 people involved in this, and we're all in 3 different time zones, separated by 10 hours from Alaska to Switzerland. So this is a unique setup for us, but nonetheless, welcome on, Severin Cathry. How are you doing today?
Wow, thanks. I'm very good. Thanks for inviting me for your broadcast. I actually feel a little bit honored.
Nice.
Oh, dude, you're an obvious choice. And it's been it was cool. I got to meet Sevi in 2018. That's crazy, dude. It was like 6 years ago. But yeah, it was I didn't know, I was early on in my mushing days, and I think at 2018 I had run the Copper Basin, but I didn't really, when you're early on in the mushing world, it's hard to, I personally was like nervous around other mushers. Like you got a little bit of imposter syndrome. Like, should I even be in the room with these guys that are like outdoorsmen and woodsmen and stuff? And there's, these legends like Alan Moore, running the race, and I'm just like staring at him like, there he is, it's Alan Moore. And then Sevi was just like such a welcoming, like easy to talk to guy at all the checkpoints, because I was handling, not running the race, and that was cool to see it at all the stops, and that was, so I was like, Sevi, I hope to see him around. And then next, you had to go back for visa reasons and whatnot to Europe, and then COVID happened a couple years later, which I'm guessing you were planning on coming back a lot sooner than 6 years. But that was, I was glad to hear that you were coming back this year, and it was good to see you around this winter.
Yeah, it was really good to come back after 6 years and catch up with all those people. I still remember the Copper Basin when we met first, Sean.
Oh, we met at Copper Basin. Okay, yeah. What do you recall about that?
I think at the finisher banquet, you were like, man, this is the toughest thing I ever did in my entire life.
Dude,
and then I think 1 or 2 years later, I saw you on Jeff King's Iditarod team because he had, I don't know, an injury or something. And I was like, right on. Now you're going to do the hardest thing of your life.
Right. Yeah, dude, that was, I mean, I had run the dogs in general. Like, okay, firstly, I'm not like I'm not like, I didn't grow up camping or like, I mean, I pretty much spent most of my childhood on cement and asphalt, and I barely had ever walked through the woods for 1 mile, and then I come up to Alaska and get into mushing, and my first winter I ran the Tustamina 200, and I again drastically kind of trial by fire, and then Copper Basin, like I have no idea, like, oh well, the Tustamina was like kind of reasonable, 4 50-mile runs, and it was really the hardest thing I'd ever done at that point. And then you're like, oh, okay, like what's another 100 miles? Like, you know what I mean? And then the Copper Basin was just like nuking snow for the entire race. I think it literally snowed 3 feet, and I don't think it ever got much colder than like 20 degrees, and it was probably as close to 40 degrees at some days, it seemed. And we were going with 5.5 miles an hour for like at least 200 miles. And I was like, probably there was some user error on my management skills, but the dogs were badass. You know, they were a young team. And anyways, suffice to say, I got to the finish line of that thing and I was like, shell shocked to say the least. I was shell shocked halfway through, you know? So yeah, that was, and you were in that race as well, correct?
Yeah, I was. That's what I remember, a warm, wet race. I spent 2 campings, I think, and there was just wet snow coming down. When I woke up again, there was like 4 or 5 inches of fresh snow on the dogs, 4 or 5 inches fresh snow on me and the sled. It was just a wet race.
And then like if it landed on you, it was usually gonna at least partially melt on your clothes. So you were just like saturated, like pretty much on the first run. And it's like, I guess you could try and dry stuff out, but you're just going to get wet again, or probably it'd just be warm and wet instead of cold and wet. But yeah, that was exceptionally, I was like, I was super, I remember the whole winter, I was like, please God, don't be minus 60. Like, because that's what it was the previous year. And I was like, dude, if it's minus 40, like I'm so fucked. And then I got exactly what I asked for. And then at the end of that, I was like, dude, I really wish it was minus 40, you know? And I don't know, maybe I didn't, but I don't know which one would have been worse. But yeah, that was, I think the dogs would have performed better at the colder temperatures. And I would have, I don't know, but 5.5 miles an hour is not fun. Not a fun time it's way more fun when you're going 10 miles an hour. What's that?
Yeah. So you remember?
Go ahead.
Like you said, it was just a warm, snowy, wet race. I think only the last run coming into to the finish line back to Glen Ellen was kind of colder and fast. But also the thing with being wet, you spend like 4 to maybe 6 hours in a checkpoint. If you're lucky, you spend like 2 hours inside. So that's never enough time to dry out completely. No matter what, when you get wet, you stay wet.
Yeah, that was definitely the case. So what was the first year you came up to Alaska?
2010.
Damn. Was that with Sven?
Years ago, yes.
Was that with Sven? What? Sven Holtman?
Yeah, for Sven Holtman in Fairbanks.
Yeah, then you got used to the cold up. So you what did you like? I guess we always want to know everybody's like, how'd you get into dogs and stuff? And so yeah, what was the draw? You came up here with the intention of like sled dogs. Right? It wasn't like you came up to Alaska to see Alaska and then you happened to find out about sled dogs. How did you get into the whole mushing scene?
Well, what really brought me to Alaska is that I always wanted to see Alaska. And I always was an outdoorsy guy. I spent my childhood working on the dairy farms of a friend family of mine in my hometown. And then, the dream grew bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, 2010, I finally came to Alaska and I got going on the glacier with a 6-dogger.
Nice.
Yep.
And then you got connected with Sven Holtman, who's been, he was definitely a pretty competitive musher with some really talented sled dogs. I remember seeing him at, I believe, I want to say it was the Tustamina in 2017 and like sitting down at the table. And that was like probably one of his last years mushing full time. And I remember because he was all tatted up and was like the center of the attention of the room there. Everybody, he was just telling stories and loud and fun. And I was like, wow, this guy, seems pretty cool. Like, and then, oh no, this was 2018. It was 2018 because then he like was driving down the highway while I was finishing my race, which by the way, like, I think the winners finish like Monday, like, and I was coming in, I took 72 hours to finish that thing. Anyways, I'm going down in the trench next to the highway, and he like pulls over and he's like, "Hey." And I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" He's like, "Pretty weird ending here because it's like you do like a square, and it's kind of a little bit of a mental, like you're like think you're close and you're really not." And he's like, "Pretty weird kind of trail it ended, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right, well, good luck," And but yeah, he seems like a cool guy. And so you worked for him in 2010.
Yeah, he had this glacier operation going on, well, in the Cape River Valley down in Palmer. And I helped him on the ground and also a little bit on the glacier. And then when fall came, we moved back to Fairbanks at the Himalaya Road, I think, out of Fox. And yeah, as the temperatures dropped, we started fall training with the four-wheeler. And I don't know, for some reason, Sven had really a lot of confidence in me. And he let me run 16 doggers. And after that, I was just hooked with mushing. This was one of the most incredible feelings ever, running a 16 dogger through the woods in Fairbanks. That feeling, that power on that four-wheeler, that was so insane.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's got to be crazy, dude. Yeah, 16 dogs, like cold turkey first winter. You're like, oh, holy shit.
So you obviously kind of got interested in mushing, working with Sven, and like how long after that was it? Oh wait, I'm kind of interested in racing. Like, was that right off the bat, or were you kind of over time? You worked, you got used to it, and then you were like, oh wait, I think I want to do a race.
Well, at the beginning, I just enjoyed mushing so much. I mean, I just could not get enough staring at 12 dog butts and go out there, mush. Didn't matter, four-wheeler, sled, bike touring, ski touring, it didn't matter. And then around Sven, I learned about races, but I never really thought about doing any races. And then one time he said, well, Sebi, you're such an awesome guy. You're such a big help around the kennel. I put you into the Copper Basin. And then I was like, well, let's do it. That's really how I got started in racing. And I was like, Sean, you stare at these people like Ellie Circle and Ella Moore and all these names, and you were like, man, I'm a really no name around here. I'm a freaking rookie. I don't even know if I can handle 300 miles on a dog sled.
Yeah, it is.
But then, I did my first Copper Basin, and it turned out to be fun.
2010 or 11 or whatever.
Actually, I don't remember. I think it was the winter 2012-13. I think that was my first Copper Basin, yeah.
Nice. How did that one go?
It went really well. I entered with a yearling team. I mean, a real yearling team. I was running 10 yearlings with 2 experienced leaders, and it couldn't have gone any better. The first stretch was a sugar bowl, but after that, it went really well. I mean, we finished strong with 11 dogs, I think. So, yeah, I was really happy about that. You feel miserable when you're doing it sometimes because you are cold, obviously. But right when you finish, you're like, oh, let's do it again. That was so much fun.
Nice. And then fill in the gaps between 2017 and 18 when I saw you that winter, and 2013 you're running your first Copper Basin. Where you spent, obviously at some point went back home to Switzerland. You can't be in the US for like super long extended periods of time. I would, with, visa complications and whatnot. So yeah, fill in the gaps between, your Copper Basin finish in 2013 and then the Yukon Quest starting line.
Yeah, I think so. My first season was a summer season, 2010. Then I came back winter 12-13. Then 15-16 again, I think. And 17-18. Yep.
So gotcha. And so 15-16 was with Sven again?
It was with Sven again, yes.
And you got to do another
And then
qualifier?
17. Well, I ran the Copper Basin again and also the Two River 200.
Damn, you're a Copper Basin regular.
Aficionado.
I was.
Three. Nice.
I also wanted to run it last season, but it didn't really fit into the racing schedule of the turning head kennels.
Right. Nice. And then you're, next thing you know, after the 2015-16 season, you're qualified to run 1,000. You ended up linking up with Al Eichens the next 17-18 winter and get to go and see the Yukon Quest trail, which is, you got to go over Rosebud and Eagle Summit and Birch Creek and all that. And I don't think it ended the way you wanted to, of course, but that's some pretty rugged country that you got to see, and I'm sure there's a lot of positives to take away from it too. But yeah, how was your Yukon Quest 1000 experience?
Yes, this was the Quest 18, I think, and unfortunately I arrived a little late in Alaska, so I was with Al Eichens, correct? So I had a hard time to bring enough miles on the dogs because he had his kennel in Wasilla, and we had always to truck the dogs to Willow to do some snow training because it was such a poor winter with snow then. And in Wasilla, it was just always warm. I mean, even if I remember correct, in December, January, it was still very warm to go out on a four-wheeler with the dogs. So yeah, we had lots of trouble to bring enough miles on the dogs. But anyway, I entered the Yukon Quest, and what happened was 30 below in Fairbanks at the starting line. And then another musher came up to me. What was his face? The guy who ran the Siberian team, the Mike Ellis. He came up to me and said again, "Well, Savy, this is going to be a real nice Yukon Quest. It's 30 below now, and it's supposed to warm up to 20 below or something." And I was like, "Yeah, sounds pretty good. Awesome temperatures to run dogs." So we left Fairbanks, ran into Two Rivers, and what happened was it was 40 below.
I'm sure you'd been in that before, but it's probably pretty shocking after a warm winter in Wasilla.
It was absolutely shocking, but not too much. I mean, I saw 40 below before. I saw 65 below before up in Battles. So we kept going, climbing over these really steep hills, Rosebud. And we came into the checkpoint 101, and it was still 40 below. It was sunny outside, but still 40 below.
Yeah, I personally, not running that race was like, Jesus, like the whole entire race until maybe the second week a little bit. But yeah, it was that first half of the race literally probably never got warmer than minus 30 for those 500 miles. And probably was a lot colder than that in some of those other, places on the trail. So yeah, tough. I mean, that's kind of how it is though, at the Quest, being in February, you got like way less sunlight. And so that March sun in the Iditarod, even if it is 40 below like it was this year, and we're going to get to Iditarod here shortly, but in the heat of the day at 3 p.m., even if it is minus 20 and Iditarod, it feels nice and kind of nice. But yeah, the quest at February 3rd, February 4th, you don't have that heat of the sun. Just doesn't right when you think it maybe is warming you up, it's going right back down anyways,
Yeah, and then doing all those crazy climbs in those real cold temperatures with a team that didn't have enough miles on them, I just could see how the energy got soaked out of the dogs. And then we made it over Eagle Summit, I think. We went all the way to Birch Creek, and then Jesus, on Birch Creek, this was the coldest I ever witnessed. I camped out the dogs on Birch Creek. I went, I think, 2-3 miles further than Riley Dyke. I fed the dogs, and, well, of course, before I could feed them, I got my cooker going. Started to melt snow into water, and I was waiting, and I was waiting, and I was waiting. But this damn water didn't start boiling. I was waiting. I looked at my tiny little thermometer on the sled. It showed nothing anymore. And I was like, damn, this damn thing is broken. So I waited, I refueled the cooker, but that damn water wouldn't start boiling. It was so cold, and that what made me think when I was sitting there waiting on the water to get boiling, how it made me realize how cold it really was. That was just a crazy experience.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, then you ended up at the halfway point, deciding to call it a race. Dogs are a little tired, and obviously the cold temperatures exacerbate any of minor problems, might become major problems, and so yeah, you got. I'm sure that was a tough decision. And then you end up having to go, pretty much go back home shortly thereafter. And so, what was your takeaway from that, winter, I guess?
Well, my takeaway was like, I want to try again. I'm not a guy who gives up easily. And that, Sean, I can tell you, almost every week ever since the Yukon Quest 18 came up to me again, it was still bothering me not finishing the race, because I'm not a guy who gives up easily, and it just kept bothering me. But with growing older and time passing, I look back at the Yukon Quest 2018, and now I'm proud of it. I'm proud of it to have it made to the halfway point. No dogs had any frostbites, neither did I have any frostbites. The whole team left the race healthy, in good conditions, and I think that's something to be proud of it. So I must have done something wrong. Right.
Yeah, it's crazy how time. And now you're old and wise, right? And I don't even know how old you are, dude. What are you, like 35, 32?
Too old.
Too old, 40? I don't know.
38 a week ago.
Hey, happy birthday, man.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, you and I are in the same I turned 38 this year too. So I don't feel old though. Okay. So, I'm just going to say, like, yes, I have no hair, right? So you could say I look old, but I'm trying to, like, not feel my age, because you can allow yourself to feel your age. You know what I mean?
I don't feel old either, Brandon. I still try to be adventurous and do stuff.
Nice. And so
how did you get...
Go ahead.
How did you get connected with the mushing scene, Brendan? I mean, we never met.
Yeah. So I have my brother is literally the connection. So, essentially, Sean moved out to Alaska and he took up the whole mushing scene. And I went out there when he was working for Jeff. I went out there, I think that was 2019, and kind of got a taste of things. And I loved Alaska, loved being in Denali. Sean took care of us. We had a nice trip there. And then we came back for his 2021 Iditarod. The 2020, we tried to get there as a family, but they shut down all of that. Like you couldn't fly. And so when he did it again in 21, we were like, all right, there's no chance we're missing this. And then after Sean finished that race, he kind of had the idea of starting a podcast, and he was kind of doing that by himself. And, you know, the podcast game is tough, especially if you're doing it all by yourself. And so somewhere along the way, I was like, Sean, I'd love to help you. I'm like, I can, you know, I can move the train, the podcast train, if you will, but you're the engine, man. Like you know, the people, you know, the races. But I would say over the last few years, I've really started to learn more about the sport and the various races, try to keep up with the different mushers. And so that's kind of how I've gotten into it, is through my brother. I've never raced before. I've been on a sled, but only in a like recreational setting, you know, where you're doing like one of those tours or whatever. I've not actually been on the runners where, like, that's what I was telling Sean. I would love during my next visit, figure out a way to go out there and actually, like, me, Sean, I don't know, maybe there's another musher or friend that wants to mush with us, but like do a full on camp out experience and where we're just relying on the dogs. That honestly, it sounds like a dream. So my experience with mushing is limited, but I've been following you all for a while now, since Sean was kind of doing it. So yeah.
Well, that sounds pretty cool. I listened in some of the podcasts, and I don't know, somehow you appear to be a knowledgeable guy in the dog world.
Yeah, well, he's made it. He's spent 4, 5, 6 years following the Iditarod, and the reason we started this thing is because, you know, I'd be on my dog runs, and in Talkeetna and at Dallas's, I had reception on most of the trails, so I'd just be like going and ripping these 40-mile runs like over and over and over, and so it'd be like like the dogs and it was pretty, like, you know, it was clockwork. So there wasn't a ton of, you know, mental stimulation happening on those runs. And so it was fun I'd call Brendan and he'd be like, so dude, what do you think the deal is with Jessie Royer? Like, do you think she's, you know, and then we'd just be like talking shit about like who's good and who's going to make the top 10 and who's, you know, this and that. And I was like, I still am not even, you know, yeah, I was still, I'm just kind of, we were just BSing, and I was like, it's kind of fun, you know, it'd be fun to bring these people on. And now I'm, you know, getting to meet them at these events and stuff. And I was like, all right, like I could rope someone like Sevy into against his will to come and talk to us, you know?
But yeah, I mean, we were having these exact conversations we're having now while Sean's out running the dogs, or, you know, and it's just like, dude, why don't we just press record and, you know, figure out a way to get some people on, and here we are. So it's fun. It's, you know, I really want to get to Alaska, like, more than just once a year. You know, I think that's like the biggest, like when Sean and I are together, doing this thing is so easy. But when Sean's in Alaska and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're 4 hours apart, and, you know, like, there are just some things that, you know, get in the way. And, or like, if Sean has an opportunity to go interview a guest in person, the logistics behind doing that versus how we're all like virtually together here today, can sometimes create an issue for us as well. So yeah, I really want to get to Alaska and meet all the different mushers. And we've been talking about like, man, whenever we come, maybe like we throw a little party and just get like the community together and have a good time, you know? So yeah, that's my,
cool.
yeah, we have to make that happen. So, but I wanted to, one thing I was picking up based on something you said, Sevi, was you were talking about your experience in the Copper Basin, and it was like super slushy and sugary is what you said. And I was curious, like what are the best, and Sean, you feel free to, chime in here too, but like, how do you, is it as simple as, okay, sugary conditions just mean you got to slow down? Or like, what are some other things that you can do to combat those conditions?
Well, I also run. I love to jog, to go running. I also do mountain marathons. And as any runner knows, difficult conditions are more harsh on you physically. So if you go through slushy, sugary conditions with the dogs, you immediately know in your brain, damn it, it takes out more energy of your dogs, and you're not moving as fast as you would like to move. So going on a nice hard-packed trail is definitely more fun than going through that damn sugar. And how it concerns to help the dogs, well, a lot of times when you go through sugary conditions, you also have those, how you call them again in English? When you have those little hills and valleys.
Moguls?
Moguls, exactly. So I always try to push
hold
the
on.
brake very
How do you
slight.
say that? How do you say that in Swiss?
Moguls.
Oh, okay. Okay. I thought there was a different way to say it that you're used to. That's why I wanted to ask.
No, he said a different word, I think.
Yeah, we are saying hyggelik.
You got that, Brennan?
Hyggelik. I got it.
Yeah.
All right.
Hyggelik. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to learn the word in your language too. So
Yeah, no worries, man. So yeah, I learned the word moguls just this winter, but I already forgot again. Yeah, anyway, going through those moguls, I always try to push this brake very, very slightly just to keep the gangline tight when you go down into that valley, and then give either with my ski pole or with my foot a push when you're down in the valley going up the hill, basically. But if the trail is windy and going down and up a lot, it's really, really difficult to support the dogs, keeping the momentum. It's, I think, one of the least conditions musher want to have. Everybody hates moguls, I think.
Yeah, that run. Yeah, it's tough to, because you're slowing down and speeding up and slowing down and speeding up, slowing down and speeding up, and the dogs can't just settle into their rhythm like they otherwise would be. Yeah, it's not like, and that's that run from Caltag is notorious for almost always having those moguls, and so for those mushers that made like Jeff Dieter, going from New Lotto through Caltag to the Tripod Flats cabin. That's a tough run. It's a tough run and a strong dog team to be able to pull off something like that and continue on to, stay competitive in the race. Because not all miles are created equally. And when you're running on moguls, those are, 2 miles to every 1 mile physically. It can be.
Yes. And I never witnessed so many moguls like in the Iditarod. That was just incredible. I never had that in training or in other races. It really sucked big time sometimes.
Yeah, the snow machines also create them, Brennan. The way that the tracks propel through the snow. The more snow machines, the more extreme the moguls can get in some places in certain conditions. And but yeah, so before go ahead.
So my question here to you, Sevi, is so you left to Alaska to go back home after the 2018 season, and then what was your timeline? Like you're at that point, you're qualified for the Iditarod. So were you trying to get back as quickly as possible? Or did you want to like take a little bit of a break? Obviously, we talked about COVID being a thing. But I'm just curious, like, what was your original intentions for trying to do your first Iditarod run?
And what are you doing in Switzerland, by the way? Like, what's going on over there? That's just want to know. I don't know what you're doing. What are you doing?
Nothing.
Just sitting around.
In Switzerland, you hold your nuts and let the money work.
Oh my gosh.
No, I'm a licensed machinist. So I produce stuff on CNC milling machines. But 4 years ago, I switched into another business. I work for a concrete mill now, and I do dispatch work and operate the concrete mill.
Okay.
It pays way better than being a mechanic, and it's closer to where I live.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, after 2018, I was so disappointed of not finishing my Yukon Quest 1000. So my real intention was to come back eventually and finish the quest. But unfortunately, as we all know, the Quest 1000 doesn't exist anymore. And then COVID obviously interrupted my plans. I wanted to come back 2001, I think, but there was no way how I could travel to Alaska again. So I just put it a little bit on the long bank and was thinking, I sit out this thing until I can return to Alaska. And since I'm qualified, I might as well try the Iditarod. That's what I did.
Nice. And then, so, you've come here, you've run different mushers dogs. So like, I'm just, we've had Mats Peterson on, and he kind of talked about using some other people's dogs too. I know he has his own too, but just like I think that says a lot that you come over from another country and there are mushers that trust you to run their dog. So as it relates to this year's race, like how did you get connected with Travis?
Well, I knew Travis from 2018. I think I met him on an After Iditarod event because I was handling for Al Ishans at that point. And then we got a little connected, and I think we got Facebook friends, but we never really actively texted with each other. And then I started out my 2003-2004 season in another kennel, and we were supposed to lease dogs from Travis. But the circumstances were a little difficult in that kennel, so I hit up Travis if I could possibly switch to his kennel and handle for him and take maybe a young team to the Iditarod, and he agreed.
That's awesome. I love it. I love it. So, Sean, I'll turn it over back to you. I know you were going to start asking questions about the Iditarod, and I know you guys probably like connected out there and saw each other, all stuff that I don't have experience of. But yeah, I mean, I will hand off the reins to Sean with this question. So you get to the start of the Iditarod. Talk about just what it took to get there. Talk about your emotions before you're about to go off. Talk a little bit about that.
Man, these are a lot of questions. First of all, it's not so easy, I think, to leave your home for half a year, go somewhere completely else. although by now I know Alaska, I also have my friends there, if I can connect easily, who help me. But then there is also always the financial aspect. I mean, if I leave home, I also leave work. That means you don't earn money for half a year. And especially with sled dog racing, you spend actually a lot of money. So that's always a huge thing. And sometimes family and some older friends back home, they don't understand how you can leave a secure home, a secure income, trading in for half of a year with adventure. They sometimes have trouble to understand that, but a passion is a passion. And then, if getting to the starting line of the Iditarod, it just takes, as Sean knows, hours of training, hours and hours of training. And then when you're done training, do other chores around the kennel, and then preparation. I mean, to prepare drop bags for the Iditarod, it's like, well, let's say if you would do it straight, it's still, I think, a week worth of work. I think you probably spent 5 days just on the meat saw, cutting meat, and all that stuff, and then another day or two is just shopping to get all the stuff. I was lucky because Travis organized all the food for the dogs. So all I really had to do is to organize my own stuff and spend or throw in the time on the meat saw and packing.
Yeah, as the old adage goes, I mean, maybe it's not an adage, but I always am thinking it's almost more of an accomplishment just to get to the damn start line than to, obviously it's an accomplishment to get to the finish line too, but it's just such a, like, there's so many, it's just like in 1,000 hurdles, and to, get, you're going to need help from an army of people to maybe throw you a couple bucks or help you cook some meals or wrap booties or, just be there for you. You had Charlie there, your partner. She probably was like, that was probably a nice, change. I'm assuming you've, mostly been up here alone. And so it's good I'm sure that was great to have that, support of another person. And then, so you get to the start line and it seems like for almost every musher, you leave the start line and it's just like the most, like, it's almost relaxing to just be like, like all that BS. Cause like the week of the start, you have all this events and all these meetings and you're like going to Anchorage and you're doing some silly ceremonial lap. That's just like, like this is not, it's like the day before the race. Like, do I really need to like waste my time doing a lap around this big city? Obviously we love the ceremonial as fans and it is fun as a musher, people are just passing you bratwursts and beer and it's fun. But you're like, I'd rather for 2021, dude, that was so sick. They canceled the ceremonial and I was like, just, I didn't have to do it. And I was still like, just stressed out. Like I was like, that the day before my 2021 race, I broke my sled, like going on my final training run, going on a 5-mile thing, my sled like bent, the runners like, looked like this at the end of the run.
Oh crap.
And I was like, and I, literally less than 24 hours from the start line, I'm like, okay, I don't have a sled. Interesting. And so I had and then I like finally, figured it out and I got some help from a good friend and I was like, oh, and I imagine I would have had to do the ceremonial start today if it was any other year. So yeah, that's just a total like, yeah, it's so suffice to say, you get to the start line and it's like, all right, now I just get to run some dogs and it's simpler, so, so you get to that first third of the race, and I like to divide it up into thirds because that first third I think was a lot like some of the what is historically like not that difficult of a run into Finger Lake, for example. Squinting into Finger Lake was really tough for every dog team because of the sugary conditions and the moguls. And you saw, like, I was surprised to see like lots of teams that were just like, whoa, like that was a challenging run. The dogs are moving a little slow, and you're also only 100 and something miles into this 1,000-mile trip, So yeah, how did that first third of leaving the start line and settling into the rhythm of moving, how did that go for you starting out this big event?
Well, I think it went really well for me. I mean, like you said, the week before the start, without lying, I think I didn't sleep more than an hour each night. But the night before the start, I actually slept a solid 6 hours. So I felt really good in the morning and I was relaxed. So I went off from the starting line, and it was two decent runs going into Yetna and Squetna. And how you mentioned Squetna, Finger Lake, it was just a sugar bowl. But it didn't really scare me or anything, because such conditions from training, from other races. The thing that was bothering me a little bit in the back of my head was, oh shit, I hope this sugar is not going on for too long. Like how I mentioned earlier in this interview, like those conditions really can take the energy out of the dogs. And since I switched the kennel in December, going from my previous partner to Travis Beal's kennel, I didn't have that many miles on the dogs like I should have had. So I was still a little bit worried about our physical conditions. And there was also the Yukon Quest 2018 back in my head. I knew it's a big thing having enough miles on the dogs, and I was just on the edge, I think. But yeah, the first third went really well, and it pretty much brought me what I expected. Fun, technically, trails.
Yeah, going through the gorge and the steps. It seems like the steps wasn't too bad, but yeah, the gorge is just got to be when it has all the snow that it had this year, a really fun kind of sporty section of trail that's that you're well equipped to navigate, and then you follow that up with the famous that those going through the Farewell Burn. I flying over that. I just like looking down. I got to fly from Finger Lake to Nikolai, and we went right back past Roan pretty much, and I'm just like looking down, and it's just like no snow anywhere for like several minutes, and I'm just looking down like looking. I can see the trail like just going through, and it's just like hard exposed ice, like maybe a little sprinkle of snow here, sprinkle of snow there, dirt. I'm like, God, you would just never go and do something like that in training. But it's always there in Iditarod, and it's almost always like that on that section of trail. So yeah, how is it getting, through that?
Well, getting back to the steps, I must admit they have been steeper than I expected.
Oh,
I was always, I'm a good skier. I do a lot of free skiing at home. I can handle that. And we got through very fine. I mean, no tumbling over the sleds, no dog tumbled, whatever. But I must admit it has been much steeper than I expected. And yeah, the gorge, as you mentioned, other Mashu said it was way more difficult other winters. For me, I thought it was technical, because there was broken ice, like it was not level anymore. So you had to go over little steps with your team and the sleds. And since I was running more in the back of the team, some other teams took wrong turns on going through the gorge. So I also ended up on wrong trails. So I had to navigate a team through some parts of rocks, through bushes, back on the main trail, but we did fine. And then, going through the burn, I knew it can have little snow, but there was literally no snow. But dogs performed very well still. I mean, the ground was solid frozen, and I still had 16 dogs on the line. And man, that landscape is so beautiful. I mean, it was warm out. I didn't even wear my beanie, and it was just a joy. Nothing else than a joy riding 16 dogs through the burn because the landscape's so beautiful there. And then you go over these farewell lakes where it's the glare ice, so you really can see into the ice because it's so crystal clear and
cool,
breathtaking.
Heck yeah. Yeah. Okay. So then I saw you in Nikolai, and
yes,
yeah, that was everybody. It was cool to see you. You just look like a little trail hardened, and that's a really tough journey from Rhone through the Farewell Burn. You camp out, and you get to Nikolai. And you're like done with the Alaska range. You've made it to the interior essentially. And, now you're going into your 24-hour is kind of what's on your mind. So, you 24, did you end up 24
in McGrath?
In McGrath. Okay. No?
McGrath. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, how was, we went Nikolai to McGrath. Yeah. Like take us through like the next couple runs.
Well, coming into Nikolai, I had to go through some wind-blown parts, and it was windy actually. And then I think maybe 10 miles before the checkpoint, I had to go through some major overflow. And unfortunately, I was short on a leader who would take me through the overflow. So I had to run in front of the team and walk the team for maybe 30 yards through overflow, one foot deep overflow. So I got into Nikolai pretty wet with wet boots and wet snow pants. But it was still fun seeing you there.
Yeah, let me
I think it was.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, I remember you wanting to dry out your stuff, trying to find a warm space. Here's a picture of Sevi and Nikolai. Nice. And
Trail Harden. Now, I was about to ask about what does Trail Harden look like? I think this is a perfect example.
Yeah, I think all the mushers I don't think there's not many people that like love having tang all the time year round, but something about being out on the trail, you're kind of almost always battling dehydration and that sugar rush gives you like an instant little flake of energy. And Sevi's he's practically sponsored by Tang. He loves it so much,
Well, we don't have Tang at home. So I really enjoy drinking Tang when I'm in Alaska. And then sometimes through training, we add a little bit of Fireball in our hot Tang.
Nice. How was your 24?
My 24 in McGrath was, how was it? It was really good. Just one of my main leader didn't pull the last run into McGrath, so that made me a little worried then. But somehow in McGrath, I spaced it out that this dog didn't pull anymore. I fed my dogs. I got good rest for myself. I massaged them down. I really was happy what I saw because I didn't have any sore dogs at that point. I ate some good food, who the Pizzeria Delphi, who sponsored me in Palmer, made up for me, and my girlfriend baked a lot of goodies for me. I always heard, "Oh, you're a rookie. You should not take your 24 in McGrath. Takatna is way better. McGrath is a kind of gross. They only have this hangar there for you, and it's not that warm, and blah, 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 blah." I don't know. I really enjoyed it there because it was quiet. There were like 3-4 other teams who took their 24 there, and I enjoyed it that it wasn't too much going on. And
Yeah,
in
Takatna
McGrath,
was a little hectic.
I bet it was.
Yeah, there's a lot of 20.
And in
I mean,
McGrath, I also met some sled dog fans, and I didn't realize, but some fans literally fly out into checkpoints just to see the race going by and talk to some mushers. I thought, well, wow, these are some real fans flying out into the interior of Alaska just to see some of their favorite mushers.
Yeah, I saw them in a lot of the checkpoints too. They literally fly out there. They're there for like an hour, and a lot of people do it every year or do it as much as they can, and it's an expensive thing to do. But it's getting to see the race from within. Not many people get that kind of access, so that was cool. You got to chat with them a little bit.
Yes. The thing is, here in Switzerland, people they like dogs. They're dog lovers. Lots of people have dogs. But you guys in America take it somehow to another level, like especially when it comes to sports with dogs.
Mm.
You live it there.
It is, and to see some of the setups that people have with their pet dogs, they're cooking them meals, and they're not even working dogs or anything. They're going them meals. They're wearing sweaters and
they're going for walks. Hey, we're going to go walk the dog in a stroller.
Oh,
are you
my
out
gosh,
of your mind? Yeah. In a fucking stroller. I'm sorry, but
yep. We have,
but I see people doing it here too with older dogs now.
Yeah, that's funny how that. Anyways, yeah. So you got done with your 24, you go through Takatna, and I'm assuming into Ophir, and that's kind of the cool thing about McGrath. You can do that short run and take a dog that you're thinking about dropping to Takatna on a short run and make that decision. And then you once you leave Ophir, I mean, really once you leave Takatna, you're like in some insanely remote country. You're not going to see a proper village for another 150 miles almost going to Ruby, because Ophir is just a little mining camp, and I got a house there, that's pretty old, and then Cripple's not even. I mean, Cripple's just. There's not much going on there. So, how is getting to the Yukon River?
Well, I left my 24 with 16 dogs on the line.
Nice.
So I was really happy about that. But then, once again, that one dog, well, he started performing again, but he was not performing like I knew him before. So yeah, we got into Takatna, went through some open water again, blew through Takatna, got into Ophir for another nice 6-hour break. And yeah, like you said, it's just a mining camp. But I really enjoyed the volunteers, the checkers there. Everybody was so funny there and in good spirits, and it was a really nice checkpoint to hang out. So the only thing that was not that nice, the heating oil ran out in the musher stand. So I basically slept outside instead, catching some warmth. But yeah, then I kept on going and camped out again. and went on from my camp to Cripple. And unfortunately, like I mentioned, my main leader didn't perform anymore. I didn't know what the hell was going on because at that point I didn't have diarrhea and the dogs seemed to be all healthy, all performed fine. So in Cripple, I just decided to drop my main leader. I was like, well, buddy, I don't know. Either you're ill or you're not having fun, but whatever, I drop you here, you go home.
Yeah,
So
that's gotta be tough.
Yeah, especially since he was one of the experienced leader who already saw the coast. So I was kind of counting on that guy. But anyway, yeah, I thought it's the best for him to leave him there. And then leaving Cripple, I had some trouble, unfortunately. Like when I left Cripple, a lot of straw got stuck on underneath my brake. So I got really slow. The team stopped. And I removed all the snow and I got the team going again and we stopped again. And then I got them going again and we stopped again. And then I was like, damn, my one female leader doesn't really want to go. So I immediately took her out and threw her in the very back of the team and threw in a very young, unexperienced leader. And he luckily got us out of the checkpoint and we finally gained some momentum and got going. But this was a point where I was a little, oh shit. Is my team already tired or what the hell is going on? I just dropped my main leader for a reason I don't really know what's going on with him. So I was a little concerned when I left Cripple there. But anyway, we left Cripple just fine. And then, unfortunately, I overdressed a little bit. It was like only 15 below, 20 below. And it got immediately... Well, I hope I don't tell any bullshit, but I think it got hilly, and I just remember I got really damp from my own sweat because I tried to help the dogs going over all those hills.
And it is hilly from what I recall as well. Yeah, no bullshit there. You're good.
Yeah, I did the race only once, so I'm not sure if I remember everything correct. But anyway, then the sky cleared and it got really cold. I mean, the northern lights were super stunning, but it got really cold. And I reached my camping spot and I was just wet, soaked from my own sweat. And I was like, oh, Stevie, that was really dumb. You got to camp here now, your dogs, and your clothes are just damp.
Yeah, that does not sound fun.
Yes, and I don't know, that was a little, well, not a scary moment, but then you remember you're just also only a human. Also, you have your limits. Even though you're a musher, you have your limits.
Yeah, that's...
So I fed my dogs when I was feeding my dogs while camping. Got some rest myself, and then I woke up really, really cold, stiff. So I was like really alert. I was like, shit, I need to warm up here, and I need to warm up immediately. So I got up off my thermarest and started walking the trail up and down, like 500 yards up the trail, 500 yards back to my team, up, back, and finally, it was really warm again. Snacked the dogs, snacked myself, booted them up, and went into Ruby. Yes.
Damn, yeah, and that began a stretch of a lot of cold weather for you. I think on that Yukon River. Here's a quick photo of Sevi in Cripple. I got all your photos, dude. There, just vibing. Got the sunglasses on, a little bit warmer out. Was it, but certainly at least above zero, yeah. I think there, and you were cranking away at chores. Yeah, and then you get to Ruby, and that's you're back on the highway there. The highway from Ruby to Galena, New Lotto, and Caltag, all very well traveled trail. It gives people the illusion that this is going to be kind of a little bit more chill, a little easier. And sure enough, you were battling cold weather and the wind up that river, that epic Yukon River. So, take us through, those. You don't have to go, through every run, but like how was just the Yukon River in general?
Well, I did 2 runs in the dark, one run throughout the day, but we left, I think, really on a decent speed on the Yukon River. And when I got into the first checkpoint on the Yukon River, I think Galena it was so cold. It was, but it was cold. And I asked the checkers in the checkpoint, "So fuck, it's just cold." So I bedded down my dogs there again, and I fed them. Luckily, they all ate good and health. But yeah, that's the one thing I always feared about mushing. It's strong winds. It was not a really strong wind, but it was windy on the Yukon River. And later on, they told me it's bad, and they said it was 40 feet up. So I kept going down the Yukon River, and yeah, not much to say. Beautiful landscape. I sleep mushed a lot.
Yeah, that's the easiest place to fall asleep, I bet. Yeah, it's got into Caltag. It's been already a lifetime and a half have passed by just to get to Caltag. I'm sure it seems like, and then you got this your last long run until you go from leave White Mountain. That last time you got to camp out and go to Unalakleet, and the coast was quite nice weather, at least in the checkpoints. There was obviously always wind, but there was also like some surprising conditions. Like I believe it might have been Ben Good that was talking about going across the sea ice of the Norton Sound, and it was whipping wind right before they left, and then once they got out on the ice, it was like dead calm, which is super rare. Was that your experience, Sevi?
Yeah, I mean, in Shaktoolik, I waited for Ben, actually. We planned on doing the Northern Sound together. And as far as I remember, yes, it was like 20 below and windy when I got into Shaktoolik. And both Ben and me, we got a rest inside. And I could tell he was a little bit worried about this run, and I was a little bit worried about this run. But then we went outside, boogied our dog, got going, and I was really relieved doing that stretch in nice conditions, actually. Very nice conditions.
It was all snow covered too. Sometimes you got like exposed ice, but that I flew over that ice, and I was like, man, that looks like a really nice trail. And yeah, that's got to be awesome. And what do you think of those coastal hills going over the Blueberry Hills and the just never end, going into Elam and leaving Elam, and then of course it was just like crazy, the hills, huh?
Luckily, the Barringtons talked on the rookie meeting about the coast, because the coast is called the coast. It's all flat. They said, I think Anna said, be prepared. The coast is super hilly. So I was prepared for that mentally, and I think that helped me a lot. But still, leaving Unalakleet, going over this hill, I must say it was tougher than I expected. And then once again, I didn't have the mile on the dogs, which I had liked to, and I could see how it took the energy out of the dogs going over this hilly stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and so but you had gotten kind of like, your dogs, the way when you have a team that's maybe not as miled up as you'd like, you are kind of easing into the race, hoping that you kind of put the finishing touches on their like conditioning during the first third, kind of build them up a little bit. But then there's the conditioning aspect, but then there's also like having a lead dog at the end of the race is just a completely different, set of responsibilities than having a lead dog while you're training. And, it's who you might put in lead when you're running a 40-mile run or 2 40-mile runs or whatever is way different than who you would want to put in lead when you're 890 miles in to a trip, So I know that can be a struggle for some teams getting, having lead dogs with that mental fortitude towards getting you to Nome. And, your last run, if I recall, maybe there was, a hiccup or two. There was definitely a moment for me watching the tracker where I was like, I hope everything's going okay. So, that final struggle getting in the Nome, how was it and how good did it feel to be done with the damn thing once you got to Nome?
So my other main leader, I had to drop in Unalakleet on the way from Old Woman to Unalakleet. She got really sore and didn't recover in Unalakleet. So I had to drop her. So none of my leaders has ever seen coast. So it was a little struggle at some points. I think, when was it? Well, going into Elam, it was all fine because we could do it at night. So the team performed really well. And then going out of Elam, a team dog got sour. 5 miles down the trail. Well, no, not 5. 2 miles down the trail, he got sour. He didn't want to pull anymore. And then I turned around to drop off that dog and got out of the checkpoint again. And I think the same thing happened to Laura, dropped him off. And then Laura passed me, and luckily I go all the way going into White Mountain. But after I dropped that sour dog, I think throughout daylight.
Yeah, you had to turn around, go back to Elam. You had a dog that didn't leave looking ready to continue on, so you came back. Then you followed Laura to White Mountain, which helps your leaders have something to kind of look at, right?
Exactly. That helped a lot, actually, especially since at that point they were all young dogs in my team. It just helped them to follow something into White Mountain. But then coming into White Mountain, I actually was quite happy how they looked, how they performed. And yeah, like every other team, we took you have to take your 8-hour rest there. And we left actually White Mountain impressive. I mean, I had one dog harness banging, and how far down the trail is it? 880 miles something?
From White Mountain to Nome, I believe, is like 72 miles, 73 miles.
Yes, but White Mountain itself is 880 miles, I think.
Yeah, it might be
correct. It's closer to 900. It says 898 on the website. So,
yeah, okay. Well, still, I thought having a dog harness banging in White Mountain, leaving the checkpoint, I thought, well, that's really cool. So we went out there in good spirits down that river, got off the river into the little bit hilly, windy sections, and the dogs did really great. We went over these, like Anna said, hilly part from the coast. We still performed great. And then I think we did the blowhole still at night. It was just, and it was actually, I think for blowhole conditions, pretty calm. So we got through all that section. It got really bright outside, daylight, and my leaders saw all the open space and they were tired over and over and over and over again. I could see them look back at me and they were like, man, where is this gonna end? Where are we gonna take a long break for once? And then no, and then it must have been like, I think less than 5 miles out of safety. And then I started walking them and got them going again and so on and so on and so on. And finally, when they saw safety, they picked up the pace again and we ran into safety to go through safety. But I think it was Jeff Reed who was already camping there.
Yeah, you got to safety and Jeff Reed's hanging out there and you decided, all right, let's take a couple hours to kind of recompose ourselves.
Yes, and actually everybody told me to do the last run straight from my mountain into no safety roadhouse. Was so much fun with those two old ladies who are running that place. We had such good laughs there and we ate burgers and sandwiches. I'm really glad I stopped there. It was, I mean, yes, the Iditarod is a race, but I think there should be also time to spend or to enjoy yourself in the checkpoints, to talk to people there, like I also did in the native villages. So yeah, we had a good time there.
Nice, and you got your. It's an amazing how your young dogs probably mentally matured out there in real time, right in front of your sled. And we're able to have that confidence in you and in the process, and you guys got to know them. And I think I have an amazing video of your team at the finish line. They were like screaming and yelling. Let me see if I can find it. But how did it feel getting on the front street and getting to that finish line?
Well, I had to walk them out of the safety checkpoint, and one of the leaders pulled over and over. He was like just looking at me, man, Savvy, where is this gonna end? And I said, well, Hobie, 20 more miles and we are there. And I don't know what happened, but out of a sudden she decided to perform again, and we just ran into Nome just fine on a good speed. I think Travis told me afterwards between safety and Nome, I was pretty awesome. I think coming into Nome. And then, seeing Nome and seeing the first cars and whatever, then I told the dogs, well, that's all this cheering on here now. This is for you guys. You're the athletes. You guys accomplished this. This is all for you guys now. And of course, dogs were excited to see another checkpoint if you want so, but I knew it's the finish line. I told the dogs, this is the finish line. All the cheering is for you guys. I think at one point they start 300 miles and it was just the joy coming into Nome, especially sun. It was just, I think it was the best time to get to Nome. And then there was a major crowd gathered. I don't know why, because I'm a no-name musher, but there was a major crowd gathered. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I got to see.
I think
I got to see you finish. That was pretty awesome, man. And there was a big crowd, and that was pretty cool to see that. And I'm sure you're kind of like, all right, it's over, and you've got lots of time to think about it now. But yeah, congratulations, man.